This is a special meeting regarding the proposals for solid waste. So roll call the vendors, please. Or roll call the vendors.
Council.
I'm reading this and talking. I can't do that, obviously. Roll call the council, please.
Councilmember Gerberding is absent. Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Councilmember Cave?
Here.
Councilmember Oliveira is absent. Councilmember Putnam?
Here.
Councilmember Steiger?
Here.
Councilmember Walker?
Here.
They have a quorum.
Do we need to probably excuse? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Walrat and Gerberding.
Second, sir.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So, any additions or changes to this agenda we cannot do at the special meeting. So, the item that we have on the agenda is selection of vendor for solid waste services, and I'll have Richard give a brief report.
I pressed out a new agenda item because we had to make an amendment to the motion for consideration. And so it's been corrected. As you know, we've had these meetings that have been held for over a year regarding what the city is going to do. And now I've heard from both proposal organizations. I think the majority of your questions have been answered. If you have any more questions, I would say now's the time to ask them before you go to make a decision. But the special meeting is about the decision.
I do have two questions that I thought about in the last 10 minutes. For Murray's, I saw this in the waste management proposal, and I didn't see it in yours, but it was 160 pages.
Yeah.
In their proposal, there was a clause where they don't charge the city for city-owned garbage. Is that in your proposal as well?
Yeah, that's correct. Definitely, city facilities would have no charge.
And then the other one is for when your vehicles are retrofitted for natural gas down the road. I would imagine that's a substantial cost. What does that look like for rates down the road for us?
You know, the way the RFP is structured, that the rate is what it is, unless there's so basically there would be no impact. So say 3 years, 4 years down the line, we roll the CNG trucks in. We're not going to come back and say, hey, you need to bear the cost of that, because basically at that point, as we're constantly purchasing new trucks, so we're just purchasing a slightly more expensive truck. However, with natural gas versus diesel prices, often that equals out. And DM also serves many communities in the South Sound, so those trucks would be providing benefit to several communities. So there would be no rate change to the city.
And then how? I don't know if this is done, but you're not done.
Yeah.
How is it prioritized where you put those vehicles if they're brought into service?
Well, short answer, yes. So, we've got, 7, 8 different cities that DM serves. And so each city, because we've got the local control, we work with each city closely. So, for Pacific, CNGs, just as you have your score, the scoring sheet, your values are here on that. And, maybe secondarily on something else where other communities, kind of value other things higher. And so, certainly we recognize, especially hearing, all the great comments this evening about the CNG, we recognize that, it would be important Pacific, but, just to reiterate, there'd be no change to the rates when those come, and, our business rates would continue to be, the 20% or more, less expensive than the other providers. So none of that would change. The residential customers would still keep all of their, substantial savings that we're proposing as well. So, question of whether that, substantial price difference, to the businesses, especially, and to the residents, is worth, the diesel emissions versus CNG for, the small number of truck hours that you have in the city. So, certainly from a large perspective, there's a big, emissions difference, but also, too, the number of truck hours in the city, it's a kind of minor incremental.
Thank you.
Further questions from council? All right, thank you. So, does council have any more questions from staff? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to enter into negotiations with Waste Management for the next solid waste contract.
Second.
Councilmember Cave, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, we used objective-based scoring criteria, and when I looked at it, personally, I looked at it and said, on the surface, you look at the rates and you go, wow, this is gonna be an easy decision. But then when you look at it from an objective of total service package, when you break it down, you know, the scores came out where they came out for a reason. And, you know, a few points here, a few points there don't seem like much, but, you know, when you're looking at professional services, you know, there are certain things that we value as a community, and one of them, you know, we hear all the time in our council meetings where they want the city to go to, you know, reduce our carbon footprint. We have, you know, the few people that do come to our meetings, it's an emphasis that they place on us, and they want us to buy vehicles, and therefore the assumption would be that they want us to enter into contracts with companies that have those vehicles. And, you know, when you start thinking about the fact that the smog from Seattle and the smog from Tacoma, as it rises and expands out into that circle, we're in the overlap. So we get double the smog. And then if we're contributing to that, we're contributing to our own deaths. And I think we need to do everything we can to minimize our impact, hoping that the communities around us will do the same, so that these circles above Seattle and Tacoma will start to shrink, and we won't be in that overlap zone, and we might have cleaner air to breathe someday. But as of now, that's not the case, and because Murray can't guarantee that they'll have services in 3 to 5 years, I just think that Waste Management is the company to go with based on all of the criteria. Like I said, it was more detailed in the written evaluations that Clint and I agreed to, and that's why I make this recommendation.
Councilmember Stikes?
Yes, we spent a lot of time on this. I did a lot of research because definitely there was a difference as far as your customer rate schedule. I myself had to evaluate all of the different criteria involved here. And along with Mr. Cave, we went through item by item and finally made the selection to go with Waste Management. But I feel that it was very, very competitive, and I appreciate, you know, giving us a quote, and at this point, that's where I stand.
Thank you. Comments from the audience?
My name's Gary Nexby, 102 Beat Avenue. I go with that recommendation too. Been sitting through all these meetings, and you know, Laura, she's been showing up here for quite a long time, and you know, those trucks that Waste Management are using right now, they're pretty nice, and I don't want to see it to change at this time.
Further comments from the audience? No? All right.
I had a thought.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, then I'll speak. Because you know I can't hold my peace. Jean Fancher, 37248 55th Avenue South. I'm a Waste Management customer up on the West Hill. And I just made a quick scan of the two documents, about 300 pages altogether. When I figured out my bill, I believe that my old bill works out to about $14 a month. I have a 10-gallon mini can, and that's with recycling. So that's an extra $5.82 a month. Waste Management's proposal was $1.33 disposal, $9.35 for collection, added up to $10.66 plus whatever the tax is. Murray's was $11 for the same service. I saw there was a difference when you shifted to the 35-gallon can, which is what a lot of people have now. It's about $23.55 under the new contract for Waste Management, and $19.82 under the contract for the 35 to 40-gallon can from Murray's. And there's the 3% and 4% fee. So I can see where the savings is coming if everybody keeps kind of the same thing. adding recycling and, every week, some sort of recycling every week to all the customers. It's going to increase the mileage somewhat. Right now, a lot of people who don't have recycling, the truck just goes by their place, so I can see there will be a savings in volume for both customers, both service providers on the number of stops, and the mileage and stuff on the trucks. What concerns me is that $500,000, if I understood that right, over 10 years, is a sizable chunk of change for people to continue with waste management. There is a 10% senior discount I saw in the Murray's. I didn't remember seeing one in waste management. I'm probably eligible for that senior discount. I didn't see in either contract any provisions for people who just absolutely cannot afford garbage service. I have neighbors who don't put out garbage, they don't put out recycle, they give it to their kids, they just can't afford that service. And, if they're cutting off their telephones to save expenses, I know it's probably not a good idea, but that $500,000 is something to consider when it comes down to the financial health of the community. Other than that, my only question is, or suggestion is that an amendment to the resolution be made to postpone this for 1 week, because it would really be nice to have all 7 of you on board making the decision rather than having 2 people absent. I think the full council should weigh in rather than the quorum of 5. Other than that, the benefit is that we get recycling and reduce the amount of stuff going to landfills. I do have questions about stacking of industries and the control of where that recycling goes, and how the changing of the recycling industry has put a crimp on some of our local businesses. And I'll just be honest, as far as I know, Jerry X Valley Recycling has stopped taking things like glass and plastic because he can't resell them. He's being charged to send those off or to take those off. So that's changed the complexion of recycling in the Puget Sound region and in Pacific itself, and one of our businesses. So I'd just like a little more. I know it's been in depth, but I really would appreciate 100% of the council have a chance to vote on this rather than the 5 people that are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. A couple of things that I can address is I know that waste management already offers the discount, and they are going to continue offering the discount for senior citizens. And we have an ordinance that requires it's mandatory for garbage service in the city. A lot of the other things that you have brought up, I know that the committee has taken into consideration. There's been a lot of deliberation on a lot of the conversations. It is unfortunate that 2 of our council members are absent tonight, but we scheduled a special meeting because they do need to move forward with the process. And so, with council's pleasure, I would like to ask if there's any more comments.
Yeah, I just want to say that we don't come to this recommendation lightly. Like I said, when it comes to rates, there's some things that we value more importantly than a few dollars a month. I know some people might not feel that way, but we have to look at things in its totality. We weren't required to do this process, but we opened it up, and we only had 2 people that are the 2 companies that are currently providing services to our city give us proposals. And as far as the senior discount, it's actually 15%, and it was in both proposals. It is in our ordinance, and that's not a typical discount that's offered. 10% is the standard, and so both companies went above and beyond in providing that service to meet our needs in our community, and I appreciate that in both bids. So it's unfortunate that 2 council members aren't here, but I do think that time is of the essence, and we do need to move this forward.
Further comments from Councilmember Walker?
So I'll, kind of to Gene's point, but this council's placed a lot of emphasis on cost savings to our citizens. I've been in meetings where we've argued for $1 per month on sewer charges and not pass sewer increases in 8 out of the funds to avoid raising rates. There's pretty significant differences here, so I would just urge council to kind of look at things that we've done in the past and things that are going to benefit our citizens. The environmental impact, I agree, is a big deal. Appears to be a plan in place. 3 to 5 years may not be realistic, but this is a 10-year contract. So just kind of something to think about.
Further comments? Councilmember Kay, if there's, before you speak, the other council members have a comment to make before Councilmember Kay speaks again. Councilmember Kay.
Yeah, I would just say that, we have something known versus something that's potential, and I'm not saying that, a company of Waste Connection size can't come through with something that they put in writing, but I've seen where projects get delayed and things take longer, than usual. And I would say, yes, a 10-year contract, but 10 years goes by pretty quick, and we can always put the next contract out to RFP, and hopefully every company that submits a bid is, able to do so with, these emission-friendly vehicles, in place. And, you're right, but about the rates, but what we looked at with rates, and the reason we didn't hammer Waste Management on a rate structure is because we looked at what we're currently paying. What we're currently paying, we either provide a rate structure that's less than what our customers are paying or equal to what they're paying for the service received. And anyone that's equal or slightly more than what they're receiving, they're actually receiving a much better service. So the only people that will see an increase are people who are only doing garbage only and at the smaller sizes. So when we make these decisions, we've got to look at what we think is in the best interest of the majority of the community. And by embedding the costs for recycling and yard waste, when you drive around town and you see pile upon pile upon pile of grass clippings and shrub clippings along our dead-end streets, and then we see trash piling up next to people's homes, or they're using larger carts than they need to because they don't recycle. We created a system that will encourage people to recycle, will encourage people to quit dumping illegally and destroying our community that way, and do it at an affordable rate, all while reducing our carbon footprint on the community. So, like I said, there's more that went into the consideration than just looking at the cost. There's more cost than the actual dollars and cents. There's other things that we took into consideration. And like I said, it wasn't done lightly.
Further comments from council? Seeing none, roll call of council on the motion.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Cave?
Aye.
Councilmember Putnam?
Aye.
Councilmember Steiger?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
No.